The arena floor stretched before Tess like a vast metallic ocean, its surface drinking in the harsh illumination that cascaded from the towering observation galleries above. Each footstep against the cold alloy sent vibrations through her bones, a rhythmic percussion that matched the thunderous heartbeat echoing in her chest. 5 Vorthak warriors stood arrayed across the arena's expanse, their imposing forms casting shadows that seemed to devour the light itself. Each warrior stood twice her height, their muscled frames encased in armor that gleamed with the burnished gold of their homeworld's twin suns. Plasma blades hummed in their grip, weapons that sang with the deadly chorus of contained energy, their edges wreathed in halos of superheated air that made the atmosphere shimmer like a mirage. Torek stepped forward, his massive frame dominating the space between them. The largest of the warriors flexed claws that could puncture starship hulls, each talon catching the arena lights and reflecting them like fragments of captured stars. His voice rumbled through the charged atmosphere, carrying the weight of ancient authority and barely contained contempt. This is pointless. Humans are weak. This proves nothing. Tess rolled her shoulders with deliberate casualness, the gesture flowing like water over stone. Every movement spoke of coiled potential, of violence held in perfect check by discipline and training that had been forged in Earth's unforgiving crucible. Her expression remained serene, almost meditative, as if she stood at the edge of a tranquil lake rather than facing certain death. You called the challenge. I'm just here to finish it. The arena erupted around them, thousands of alien voices rising in a crescendo that crashed against the reinforced walls like storm waves against a cliff face. The spectators packed every tier of the observation galleries, their forms representing dozens of species from across the galactic arm. They thirsted for spectacle, for the ancient primal satisfaction of watching predator and prey dance their eternal ballet. Jian moved with reptilian grace, his scaled hide catching the harsh illumination and fracturing it into prismatic rainbows. Each scale was a masterwork of natural armor, evolved over millennia to turn aside claw and fang. His eyes held the cold calculation of a born killer as he studied the human before him. 5 against 1. Surrender now and keep your dignity. Tess drew her combat knife with a fluid motion that seemed to slow time itself. 6 inches of earth steel emerged from its sheath, the blade singing a whisper-soft note as it cut through the arena's recycled atmosphere. Against plasma weapons and evolutionary perfection, it seemed laughably inadequate. A relic from humanity's primitive past. Dignity's overrated. Besides, 5 seems about right for a fair fight. The Vorthak warriors exchanged glances that spoke volumes in the universal language of predator uncertainty. They had studied human combat recordings, analyzed the tactical reports from border skirmishes and first contact incidents. But intellectual knowledge was a pale shadow compared to standing before one of Earth's children, feeling the weight of her regard like the pressure wave before an explosion. Thul activated his weapon with ceremonial precision, the plasma blade extending in a brilliant cascade of contained stellar fire. The energy field hummed with barely restrained violence, its heat signature painting dancing shadows across his armored features. His voice carried the confidence of one who had never known defeat. Your species sent their best. We expected more. The human's smile was a work of art, all sharp edges and hidden depths. In that expression lay the accumulated weight of Earth's evolutionary pressure, the genetic memory of species that had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts, predators and plagues. It was the smile of something that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain and intended to stay there. You got exactly what you needed, just didn't know it yet. Tess settled into her fighting stance, her weight distributing across the balls of her feet with the unconscious perfection of someone who had learned to move like water and strike like lightning. Every line of her body spoke of readiness, of coiled potential waiting for the precise moment to unleash itself upon the world. The trial master's voice resonated through the arena's acoustic systems, each word carrying the weight of ancient tradition and formal ceremony. The sound seemed to emerge from the very walls themselves, as if the station itself bore witness to the ritual about to unfold. Combat begins in 10 seconds. Victory conditions are simple. Last warrior standing wins. Bragg's laughter erupted like grinding stone, a sound that spoke of mountains being born and civilizations crumbling to dust. His confidence radiated outward like heat from a forge, warming his fellow warriors and chilling the human who stood alone before them. This will be over in seconds. Tess tilted her head with the curious grace of a predator studying prey, her dark eyes reflecting the arena lights like polished obsidian. When she spoke, her voice carried the quiet certainty of natural law, of gravity and entropy, and all the forces that shaped the universe according to their inexorable will. Probably. Question is which seconds count. The horn's clarion call shattered the tension like breaking glass. All 5 warriors erupted into motion simultaneously, their strategy as elegant as it was simple. Overwhelming force delivered from multiple vectors, the tactical doctrine that had served their species for countless generations. They moved with the fluid coordination of a pack that had hunted together across a dozen worlds. Tess moved. She didn't retreat toward the arena's periphery, didn't seek the safety of distance and defensive positioning. Instead, she stepped directly into the heart of their assault, her blade flashing toward Torik's weapon hand like a silver serpent striking from shadow. The massive warrior jerked backward, his combat instincts screaming warnings that his conscious mind couldn't quite process. Humans were supposed to flee from superior numbers, to cower before the overwhelming display of Vorthak martial prowess. They were supposed to be afraid. Tess's blade found the microscopic gap between armor plates with surgical precision, drawing a line of crimson across scales that had turned aside weapons capable of cracking planetary crust. The wound was shallow, more symbolic than debilitating, but it served its purpose. First blood had been drawn, and the predators were no longer the only ones who could bite. Torik's roar of rage and humiliation echoed through the arena like the death cry of a star going supernova. His claws swept in a wide arc that could have bisected a combat shuttle, the air itself screaming as it was carved apart by weapons evolved for killing. Tess was already gone. She had rolled beneath Jian's plasma thrust with liquid grace, the superheated energy passing close enough to singe the air above her head. In the same fluid motion, she came up behind Thul, her elbow driving into his knee joint, with the focused precision of someone who understood anatomy as both art and weapon. Vorthak physiology differed from human in countless ways, but joints remained universal points of vulnerability. Physics and biology conspired to make certain truths inescapable, and Thul discovered those truths as his leg buckled beneath him. The warrior stumbled, his plasma blade wavering like a candle flame in a hurricane. For a moment, his perfect coordination faltered, and in that microscopic gap between thought and action, death waited with infinite patience. Scar moved to flank her, his weapon sweeping in a horizontal cut designed to separate her torso from her legs with clinical efficiency. The plasma edge traced a line of fire through the arena's atmosphere, leaving ghostly afterimages burned into the retinas of watching spectators. Tess dropped flat against the arena floor, the superheated energy passing inches above her prone form. She swept Scar's legs with her own, using his momentum against him in a maneuver that transformed his deadly charge into a catastrophic fall. The warrior crashed to the metallic surface with bone-jarring impact, his weapon skittering away across the arena floor like a lost star seeking its constellation. Bragg snarled his disbelief, the sound emerging from somewhere deep in his chest, where rage lived alongside ancient pride. He and his remaining mobile warriors regrouped with the fluid efficiency of professional killers, their earlier confidence tempered by the bitter taste of respect. Impossible. Tess wiped blood from a shallow cut on her arm, the crimson droplets falling to the arena floor like offerings to some forgotten god of war. One of them had managed to tag her during the chaotic exchange, proving that even apex predators could learn from their mistakes. Just getting started. Your turn. They attacked again, but their assault carried a different quality now. The reckless confidence of predators who had never known defeat had been replaced by the careful calculation of hunters who understood they faced something dangerous. They had learned she could bite back. Tess had learned something as well, reading the patterns of their movement like a scholar studying ancient texts. They fought like predators, with coordination and efficiency that spoke of evolutionary perfection. They moved with the deadly grace of creatures born to hunt and kill. But they fought like predators who had never been prey. She scooped up a handful of arena sand, the abrasive particles glittering like ground diamonds in the harsh illumination. The handful of dust became a weapon as she hurled it into Jian's eyes, temporarily blinding the warrior behind a curtain of tears and reflexive blinking. While he was disoriented, she stepped inside his guard with the fluid motion of someone who understood that close-quarters combat was as much about timing as technique. Her knife punched through his shoulder armor, finding the weak point where mobility demanded flexibility. Jian's scream of pain and rage echoed through the arena like the cry of some primordial beast, his weapon clattering to the floor as his nervous system overrode conscious control. Torek and Bragg pressed their assault with renewed fury, their embarrassment transforming into cold rage. The human was making them appear weak before thousands of spectators, undermining the very foundation of Vorthak martial supremacy. Tess claimed Jian's fallen plasma blade, her hands closing around a weapon designed for anatomy twice her size. The energy field hummed with barely contained violence, its weight distribution completely wrong for human physiology. She used it anyway. The plasma edge carved through Bragg's armor like a laser through morning mist, the superheated energy finding no resistance in materials that had been forged to withstand conventional assault. He collapsed with catastrophic suddenness, his weapon arm severed cleanly at the elbow. Torek backed away, his earlier confidence evaporating like water in vacuum. The human advanced toward him with steady purpose, two weapons gleaming in her blood-stained hands, and he realized with crystalline clarity that everything his species thought they knew about Earth's children was dangerously incomplete. This isn't possible. Humans don't fight like this. Tess continued her inexorable advance, her movements carrying the patient certainty of entropy itself. When she spoke, her voice held the weight of evolutionary truth, of lessons learned in crucibles that would have killed weaker species. We fight however we need to. That's the difference. A new sound penetrated the arena's recycled atmosphere, deep and primal and hungry, in ways that spoke to genetic memories older than civilization. The rumbling grew in intensity, carrying harmonics that made the arena's superstructure vibrate in sympathetic resonance. The crowd's bloodthirsty cheers transformed into screams of terror as emergency barriers began descending around the observation galleries with mechanical precision. Spectators abandoned their seats in panic, fleeing toward exits that suddenly seemed impossibly distant. What's happening? Scar struggled to his feet, his weapon lost somewhere in the chaos of combat and fallen bodies. The arena master's voice crackled through speakers that seemed to struggle with interference, each word distorted by the growing cacophony of emergency systems activating throughout the station. Emergency protocol activated. Containment breach in sections 7 through 12. All personnel evacuate immediately. Additional roars answered from the darkness beyond the arena's illumination, each voice carrying a different pitch and timbre that spoke of diverse threats converging on their location. The sounds painted a picture of nightmares made manifest, of evolutionary perfection honed by millions of years of successful predation. Breach. Toric's scales had shifted to a pale shade that spoke of fear so profound it overwhelmed his nervous system's ability to maintain normal coloration. What kind of breach? Tess already understood, her tactical mind processing the implications with mechanical efficiency. She had studied the station's schematics before agreeing to this trial, memorizing every corridor and containment protocol with the thoroughness of someone who understood that information was the ultimate weapon. This is a research facility. They study dangerous creatures here. The first predator emerged from the shadows beyond the arena lights like a materialization of pure nightmare. It stood 8 feet in height, its form covered in fur so dark it seemed to absorb light itself. 6 limbs terminated in claws that could carve through starship hulls, while its head was an evolutionary masterpiece dedicated entirely to the art of killing. A Thanic Ravager, one of the galaxy's most efficient predators, a creature that had driven 3 species to extinction before being contained for study. 1 of 5. Tess counted the distinct roars echoing through the arena's superstructure, her tactical mind cataloging threats with clinical precision. They're pack hunters. The Ravager's alien intelligence focused on the wounded Vorthak warriors with predatory calculation. It scented blood in the water and recognized easy prey when presented with it. It charged. Bragg's scream cut through the arena's atmosphere like breaking glass, as razor claws ripped through armor that had been forged to withstand military-grade weapons. The Ravager's jaws clamped down on his throat with hydraulic force, and the screaming stopped with terrible finality. 4 additional predators entered the arena, each one representing a different evolutionary approach to the problem of killing efficiently. A spike walker whose natural armor resembled living blades, its every movement accompanied by the sound of metal scraping against stone. A void stalker that seemed to bend light around itself, creating optical distortions that made it difficult to track visually. A crusher whose jaws could bite through the hulls of capital ships, its bite force measured in megatons. A phase hunter that flickered between visible spectrums, existing partially outside normal spacetime. We're dead. Jian's whisper carried the weight of absolute certainty as he clutched his wounded shoulder. 5 apex predators. We can't fight them all. Tess checked her weapons with methodical precision, her tactical mind already calculating angles and possibilities. 1 human knife forged from earth steel, 1 alien plasma blade designed for different hands. Against 5 of the galaxy's most perfect killers. You can't, I can. Are you insane? Toric pressed himself against the arena wall as if the metal could somehow provide sanctuary from what approached. These things kill entire hunting parties. Then you better stay out of my way. The spike walker attacked first, its blade-covered hide gleaming like polished obsidian as it rushed forward. Each step left gouges in the arena floor, the metal screaming in protest as it was carved apart by evolutionary weapons. Tess waited with the patience of a predator who understood timing, her muscles coiled like springs loaded with potential energy. At the last possible moment, she rolled aside with liquid grace, the creature's momentum carrying it past her position. Her plasma blade drove deep into its flank, superheated energy meeting alien flesh in a cascade of sparks and steam. The spike walker's shriek of pain and rage echoed through the arena like the sound of tearing metal. The void stalker phased into visibility behind her, its claws sweeping toward her head with mechanical precision. Reality rippled around its form like heat distortion, making it difficult to track its exact position. Tess ducked beneath the strike, her blade finding the creature's hamstring with surgical accuracy. The wound wasn't immediately fatal, but it served its purpose, slowing the predator's movement and disrupting its phase-shifting ability. The crusher charged next, its massive jaws opening wide enough to engulf her entire form. Rows of teeth designed for crushing starship armor gleamed in the arena lights like polished ivory monuments to destruction. Tess ran straight toward the creature, her path unwavering despite the suicidal nature of her approach. At the last moment, she slid between its legs, her blade opening its belly as she passed underneath in a maneuver that required perfect timing and absolute courage. The phase hunter flickered around the arena's perimeter, appearing and disappearing in different locations as it attempted to confuse her targeting systems. Its movement created optical afterimages that lingered in the air like ghostly echoes. Tess closed her eyes, shutting out the visual chaos and focusing on other senses. She listened to its breathing patterns, the subtle sound of its feet touching the arena floor, the distinctive heartbeat that marked all carbon-based life forms. When it materialized behind her, she was ready. The plasma blade took its head off in a single sweeping motion that painted the arena wall with alien ichor. 4 down, 1 to go. The Thanic Ravager had finished consuming Bragg, and now turned its attention toward the remaining Vorthak warriors. They huddled against the arena wall like prey animals, wounded and terrified, and utterly helpless before the approaching nightmare. The Ravager stalked toward them with predatory patience, recognizing broken spirits when it encountered them. They represented no threat, merely calories to be consumed at leisure. Tess whistled. The sound cut through the arena's atmosphere like a blade, sharp and clear and unmistakably challenging. The predator's head snapped toward her with mechanical precision, its alien intelligence recognizing a threat when confronted with one. Just you and me now. Tess hefted her weapons, blood from multiple wounds painting abstract patterns across her combat fatigues. Let's finish this. The Ravager circled her with the patience of something that had never known defeat, looking for weaknesses in her stance and guard. It had observed her kill the others, had analyzed her tactics and capabilities with predatory intelligence. They moved around each other like dancers performing an ancient ritual, predator and prey locked in the eternal ballet that had shaped evolution since life first crawled from primordial seas. The arena fell silent except for their breathing and the soft whisper of feet against metal. The Ravager lunged with explosive force. Tess met its charge head-on, her knife punching into its throat while its claws raked across her ribs. They crashed to the arena floor together in a tangle of limbs and blood and desperate violence, each fighting for survival against an opponent perfectly designed to kill. For a moment that stretched like eternity, neither moved. Then Tess rolled away from the entangled bodies, standing with careful deliberation. She wiped blood from her face with the back of her hand, the gesture somehow dignified despite the carnage surrounding her. The Ravager remained motionless. The arena had fallen into profound silence, broken only by her labored breathing and the distant sound of emergency systems cycling through their protocols. 5 apex predators lay dead around her, creatures that represented the pinnacle of evolutionary killing efficiency, all brought down by one human with basic weapons and unlimited determination. Torek stared at her with something approaching religious awe, his earlier arrogance completely forgotten. The question emerged from somewhere deep in his chest, where certainty had once lived. How? Tess limped toward the arena exit, where security teams were already deploying with military precision. Medics for the wounded, cleanup crews for the dead, investigators to determine how 5 of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures had escaped containment simultaneously. Practice. That's impossible. Jian's protest carried the weight of everything his species believed about the natural order. Humans don't hunt apex predators. Tess paused at the arena entrance, looking back over the carnage with eyes that held depths the Vorthak warriors were only beginning to comprehend. When she smiled, the expression carried the accumulated weight of Earth's evolutionary crucible. We don't hunt them, we exterminate them. The surviving warriors watched her departure with the newly acquired knowledge that would haunt their dreams for years to come. They understood now that Earth's reputation as a deathworld had nothing to do with environmental hazards or natural disasters. It was a deathworld because of what it produced, and what it produced was very, very good at killing things that needed to be killed. The arena master's voice echoed through the facility's communication systems, each word carrying the weight of bureaucratic necessity and barely controlled panic. Medical teams to Arena 7, containment teams to Sublevel 12, and someone call the human embassy, a pause that stretched like held breath. Tell them their Marine passed the trial.